Namaste and welcome to another session with the Hindu Parents Network. Hindu Parents Network is an initiative of the Coalition of Hindus of North America, also known as KONA. My name is Sudha Jagannathan. I'm on the board of directors at KONA. I welcome you all to a very interesting session with an interesting guest we have today with us. As you know, Hindu Parents Network provides a platform that enables parents and students to come together and form a network to exchange ideas and resources, build a network of similar-minded, community, really to encourage and inculcate dharmic values when we live away from our homeland. A couple of I want to highlight a few important things that the HP and team does. They put in a lot of hard work. I want to tell you, they're all full-time professionals outside, and they take this on as their dharmic action as volunteers, and they do a terrific job. Advocacy in schools is a big thing we engage in. Secondly, encouraging students to try out our supplementary materials in addition to their regular schoolwork. We provide very uniquely crafted supplementary materials focused on dharmic values. So please check us out on that. And we also look at how is Hinduism and Dharma portrayed in schools. And if you have children in schools, you know, it's not portrayed very well. Right? So parents have to be engaged and involved, and we give you the tools to do that. We also host educational programs for children and parents, such as this one. So with that, let me introduce our guest for our session today. He's Dr. Vivek Desai, and he has a very interesting background himself with a PhD in molecular biology and a couple of degrees in philosophy and Sanskrit. I have to say, I'm so impressed with these young Indians of Indian origin, I have to say, who explore a lot of different things, right? So with that, Dr. Desai, he's also published a lot of works to his credit. That's something else we need to look into. But he has actually put together a framework, and I'm going to have him explain what that framework is. And he's now running a school in India, really sort of an immersive experience in the Hindu Dharma. So if you remember what our ancestors had, it was the Gurukuls, a completely integrated system based on dharmic values. And Dr. Desai is trying to bring that back, and he's going to share with us how that some of his principles of that framework can even apply to parents and students abroad. So with that, Dr. Desai, welcome and thank you for joining. You may want to unmute and maybe just give us a little summary of who you are and your journey from, science to education. That would allow us to understand the context of today's conversation.
Sure. Namaste, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm very excited about this, delighted that Hindu Parents Network has given me this opportunity to share with all of you the way in which we can bring back the Vedic system of education in today's modern times. A little bit about my journey, since you requested. Actually, my educational background was initially in science, in molecular biology. I first did my Bachelor of Science in Cellular Molecular Biology and Genetics, along with a BA Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, where I studied philosophies of different traditions and cultures. Also some minor degrees in anthropology, religious studies, and biochemistry. After that, I wanted to pursue medical research, so I went to Princeton to pursue my graduate degree in molecular biology, and I have papers published on my research. Along during this time, I also had a parallel track going on with my interest in philosophy and later spirituality. As I went deeper and deeper into my study of philosophy, I realized that the highest or most sublime philosophical thought was present in the Vedas, especially in the latter part of the Vedas, known as the Upanishads. And that triggered me to study that deeper, which I did in the US. And then, because the scriptures, the sacred text of the Vedic tradition are written in Sanskrit, I wanted to learn the actual language so as to not rely on translations. So I studied Sanskrit under my Sanskrit teacher, a traditional Sanskrit scholar who lived his life immersed in the study and teaching of Sanskrit language and grammar. Then I also came to India. I'm currently in India right now. And I studied further with him and also attained my master's degree in Sanskrit from Kalidas University in Maharashtra. So right now, for the past year, I've been running a school where we teach academics, but along with academics, we teach Sanskrit from nursery. We firmly believe that Sanskrit is not just a language, it is the very foundation and fabric of the Vedic culture. And Vedic culture is a holistic culture. It is basically holistic education. And we offer that in the lap of nature here. Holistic education means education not just at the mental level, but education at all levels of our being. And what has happened in the education system, not just in India, but worldwide, is that we have reduced it to just enhancing memory, regurgitating information, studying to get a job or to start a business. And that's about it. There's no larger or deeper purpose to the reason for study, the reason for education. Why are you going to school? Why are we sending our children to school? Why are teachers teaching in school? Why are people running a school? Nobody has a deep, profound answer to this question. They're all superficial answers that it is as if it's just a job or a thing to do, or everybody's doing it, so I'm doing it. We have really questioned this in the school that we run here, which is called Shada Prabha, the light of knowledge, where the motto is Sa Vidya Ya Vimuktaya. Knowledge is that which liberates. Now, this is not something special to our school. This is actually the definition of knowledge found in the Vedic sacred texts. And we have simply tried to revitalize that in modern times. It's the exact opposite of what education has become today. For most people, education has become binding. So it puts pressure on the children to study. It puts pressure on the teachers to teach and give exams and cover the curriculum. But there's no deeper exploration. There's no awakening of curiosity in the human mind. The mantra that you see behind me here, coincidentally, is actually a Shanti mantra from the Vedas, which is often chanted at the beginning of scriptural study. Let me just chant that. Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This mantra, we think these mantras are exotic or only for rituals or pujas or to be restricted to temples or scriptures. But if you actually understand the meaning of these mantras, for example, this mantra is talking about a teacher and student. Om Sahana Vavatu, may we be protected. Okay, and this means at all levels. Who are we praying to? It's not even a theistic prayer. It's not even praying to a particular god. It's not even invoking the idea of religion. It's just a heartfelt prayer to that being, however you envision him, that is larger than you, that is at the source of you and me. So it starts out, the teacher and the student start out their study with a prayer. And the first thing we have removed from our modern education system is prayer. There's kind of an interesting take on the current situation in the schools in the US, where unfortunately we hear, we read in the news, see in the news a lot of shootings happening. And I mean, there cannot be anything more tragic than that. And somebody had said that, somebody asked God that how can you let this happen in school, where little kids come to study? How can you allow something like this to happen? And God says in this particular example, and without taking it too literally, we're just trying to get to the import of it. He says, what can I do? They removed me from school. How can I protect anyone? So we have separated religion and education. We have separated religion and science. We don't even actually know how to define religion. We don't even know the difference between religion and spirituality. And in this kind of a confused mix, we have created strange ideas like secularism means no religion in school, no prayer in school, no Sanskrit in school, no scriptural study in school. And that has had an extremely negative effect on the psyche of the current generation. Look at this prayer. It says, may we be protected. Both the teacher and the student are trying to tune themselves to a certain frequency where they can then allow that knowledge to explode. In the Vedic education, knowledge was not something to be just passed on as information. Knowledge is something to be transmitted. And that transmission happens when both the teacher and the student are aligned. They are at the same wavelength in terms of their thinking, in terms of the cause, the purpose of this education. Sahano bhunatu, may we be nourished at a very deep level. This is talking about emotional nourishment. This education is not just about intellectual stimulation. It's about emotional nourishment. It's about intellectual nourishment to the point that it actually takes you beyond the intellect, not just beyond the mind, but beyond the intellect. And we'll see as we go along what that means. Sahaviryam Karavavahe. May we have the strength, the vitality, the enthusiasm to work together. It is asking the divine, however you envision him or her, to remove the lethargy and the laziness from within us and activate us, inspire us, awaken us to perform good actions. We live in an age today where every other person talks about activism and wokeism. This is real activism. It is not against anyone. It is for the interest of the entire humanity. That is true activism, which is driven out of compassion, which springs from compassion. It doesn't spring from anger. It springs from loving kindness towards not just all humans, but all living beings, all sentient beings, and not just all sentient beings, but all elements. It is compassion for all that exists, towards nature, towards animals, plants, humans, everyone and everything around us. Tejasvina avadhitamastu. May our intellects be bright and brilliant. Why? Not just to pass an exam, but to question the very beliefs that we are driven by. Today's modern education system, what do? We go and take an exam and we fill out answers. We write answers that we are taught in class or that we have studied somewhere. It's basically information that we are just writing down on paper. And whoever can do that the best passes the exams with flying colors. In the Vedic education system, you're taught not just to answer questions, but to actually ask questions. Ask the right questions. And how or who will do that? Who will be able to do that? He or she whose intellect is bright. That's what makes us humans. To ask questions. Animals cannot ask questions. Animals are driven by instinct. They are born programmed to behave in a certain way, to act in a certain way, to react in a certain way. They react to stimuli and they're programmed to be that way. They're instinct driven. And there's nothing that they can do to change that. An animal is born, grows, ages, and dies, and there's no change in his personality. The animal remains the same throughout his life in terms of the way it is programmed. It eats, it sleeps, it mates, it is afraid of predators. That's about it. Humans are more than just animals. We are not born to just eat, sleep, have children, and live a life of fear, and then die one day. We have been blessed with an intellect, with a sophisticated mind, which means an intellect that can ask questions. So Vedic education encourages us to ask questions, to question everything and anything that comes your way. Question your very existence. Who am I? That is the ultimate question a human being can ask. It's called Atma Vichar. Vichar means inquiry, Atma, self-inquiry. Which education system today teaches us that? It talks about Brahma Jignasa. Jignasa, curiosity, Brahma, the absolute source of this entire universe. What is the source of this entire universe? Whence did this universe come about? From what? From when? Or since when? These kinds of questions, these two categories of questions, Brahma Jignasa and Atma Vichar, these are the two highest questions a human being can ever ask. That's as far as the intellect can go. And today we discourage children from asking even simple questions. We say, well, just Google it, find the answer. Or don't bother with that. Why does the sun rise? Oh, we don't know. And we won't even say that. We say, that's not a question you should ask. Let's figure out how the sun rises. We won't figure out why the sun rises. So from a very young age, we dampen that curiosity, that innate curiosity. And the moment you do that, we create not humans. We don't allow the human potential to develop, to unfold. to manifest, that creates frustration. It's like, let me give an example. It's like a bird spending its entire life in a cage, or not even a cage. Let's say it's just walking on ground. What would you say of that bird? How would you feel if that bird is simply walking on ground and never got a chance to fly? You would say the bird's potential was wasted. In fact, I don't even know if that we could call it a bird because it never flew. And that is a pathetic situation. That is a sad plight to watch, and even worse, to actually be in that situation where you have so much potential and hardly anything is manifested of it. That is the root of all the problems we see today in the world. If I go to the very root of the problem, it is that we are not giving humans the chance to blossom. We're not encouraging humans, each other, as this prayer is praying for, to blossom, to unfold into our true potential. Tejasvina avadhitamastu. May our intellects be bright so that they can ask such questions, they can comprehend the truth of life. Because who knows the answer to this question? You know, there are scriptures in the Vedas. For example, the Nasadiya Sutta, one of the very ancient hymns, one of the most ancient hymns in the Vedas. It says, where did all this come from? What is the origin of this entire universe? And you know what it says? Maybe, it says we don't know, maybe that which was present before the universe began might know. And then it says, the last line says, maybe it also doesn't know. Which scripture talks like this? That the importance is of the question, not of the answer. This can throw a modern logical mind on a ride. I mean, he wouldn't figure out what is going on. Why is the scripture not answering the question? Because it doesn't value the answer. It values the fact that you have a questioning mind. Have you questioned why you're doing what you're doing? Or are you just doing because everybody else is doing it? When you're buying that thing from a supermarket, whether it's a shirt or some jewelry or whatever it is that you're buying from the mall, or you're getting a new iPhone, or going out to watch a movie, or watching the next web series, or just signing up for some social media account. Have you ever questioned why you're doing what you're doing? Or are you just doing because everybody else is doing it? In psychology, this is known as the herd instinct. The herd instinct is when the entire herd moves in a certain direction and the individuals in that herd don't question it. The herd mentality dominates the herd and just moves the entire herd in a certain direction. No one questions it. We have social media giants today that decide what we need, what we should buy, what we should watch. And then we wonder why we have a rising trend in lifestyle diseases, in mental disorders, and in domestic issues as well. Why? You watch one video and the algorithm tells you these are related videos. You buy one item and the algorithm tells you customers who bought this also bought these items. You watch something, you watch a reel, the algorithm will give more reels like that. So is the algorithm really looking out for your development? for your unfoldment. No, it's not. Because the people behind the algorithm, the people behind these social media giants or just companies, they are not there to look out for you. They are there to make profit at the expense of your unfoldment. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to question. They want you to believe whatever they're selling you. In the pharmacy, they tell the pharmacist that if you tell a story 7 times, the customer begins to believe it. So keep repeating it like a broken record. Keep repeating it till the customer believes it, that yes, I need this medicine. Why? Because they want to make profit. So we are today conditioned to believe, whereas the ancient Vedic education taught humans from childhood to question anything and everything. Don't just believe. You have an intellect. You're a human being. Use your intellect. Question, why are you doing what you're doing? If you make a wrong choice, the algorithm is not going to tell you that this is the wrong choice for you, for your well-being. In fact, it's going to sell more of that. You're going to sink into a deep hell. It's going to be a quicksand because it's going to give you more searches just like that, more products just like that. It wants you to remain in a non-questioning mode so that you are just driven like a robot. You are now a programmed individual. Your choices are being governed, are being decided by factors outside you. The remote control is in someone else's hands. And you're simply a tool for them to make profit. And today, even education system, sadly, has become just a business. It's all about making money. Teachers look at salaries. Teachers look at the number of hours. In the ancient Gurukul system, you live with the teacher. The teacher teaches you every day, all day, in different ways, in all kinds of ways, through his words, through his example, and even through his silence. We have Dakshinamurti, the south-facing guru, who teaches in silence. Which tradition talks about this today? A teacher, a young teacher, teaching old disciples in silence. And the entire teaching is conveyed. It says the questions and the doubts in the minds of the old disciples were answered. In fact, the question wasn't even answered because the question disappeared in that presence of the teacher. That is a teacher. He's known as the guru, the light, the one who takes us from darkness to light. The last part of this mantra, Ma Vidvisha Vahe. May we never harbor hatred towards each other. So many times we hear children not liking the teacher, teacher not liking the students, teacher favoring certain students, teacher having some bias against certain children, students being afraid of the teacher, teacher being afraid of the students' parents. It's a complex and a complicated world and education system that we have created. And this ancient Vedic mantra is simply saying that may we never have animosity or conflict with each other. Why? Because only when we are tuned to the same wavelength can we allow that knowledge to explode. Do we pray before we begin studies? If we don't even pray before we begin our studies, how do we expect students and teacher to be on the same wavelength and be able to experience that transmission, not by the teacher to the student, but by the force that has been going on or coming down through ages uninterrupted. It says in the scriptures, Sada Shiva Samayambham. This tradition of teacher to disciple has been going on since the beginning of time, up until the current teacher. Education is supposed to liberate you, not bind you into answers and beliefs, not bind you into belief systems, not condition you to believe a certain ideology. Today, so many political debates are rampant about right and left and this and that. The Vedic system says there is no right and left. Explore something beyond. These concepts, these ideas are not Vedic ideas. They've come from a different tradition that doesn't have this foundation. Why are we buying into that framework? Why can we not look at our own scriptures and figure out what our framework was and is today? It's eternal, it's timeless, it's called Sanatan. It's timeless and it's universal, it's for everyone. It's not just for Indians, it's for everyone. But first, at least let us adopt it. At least let us understand what it is all about. It is about self-unfoldment. It is not about a belief system. These mantras are part of the Vedas, and Veda means knowledge. Here, knowledge doesn't mean just knowledge of the world, knowledge of science or math or history or economics. Knowledge here means the highest knowledge, self-knowledge, knowledge of our true nature. The two kinds of knowledge in the Upanishads, the lower knowledge and the higher knowledge. The lower knowledge deals with the realm of the world, the realm of duality. So you got science, math, economics, history, business, and all the other subjects and disciplines. That's not it. There's more to knowledge. There's higher knowledge. There's a higher knowledge which is not about any particular subject. It is about oneself. We hear stories in the Upanishads, like a disciple, a student spends 12 years with a teacher in a school, learns all the different disciplines that you could imagine. You could say he went to an Ivy League, okay, in today's times. And he learned all the subjects that university offered. He majored in different subjects. He got several degrees, and he thought he was a very educated person now. He comes home to his father. And guess what the father asks him? Do you know everything? He says, yes, I know everything. I've studied everything. The father says, I'm very proud of you. Now, let me ask you a question, because the father sensed that he thinks he knows everything. That is the highest obstacle to knowledge. So he says, do you know that, knowing which everything else is known? He says, well, my teacher never taught me that. My teacher taught me science and technology. My teacher taught me history and economics. My teacher taught me sports, but he never taught me. What is that which you're referring to? He says, well, there is knowledge of a principle, a tattva, a reality, knowing which everything is known. And he's simply blown away. He says, I don't know that. Let me go ask my teachers. The teachers also don't know that. So the father says, then what have you learned? You haven't learned anything. The teachers tell him that your father knows the answer to this question. So why don't you just ask him? And the father goes into an elaborate description of what that reality is. And you might be wondering what the answer is. Well, I can't tell you everything right away because these are sublime truths that take time to tell and to understand. So we'll save a little bit for some other time too. But what I'm
Vivek
pointing at,
ji, I wanted to I wanted to say, I mean, you're talking about a lot of concepts that I would say the majority of Hindus don't practice. Kind of makes it, a little bit of a worrisome that how far we have gone away from our roots and we have to bring them back. And I think that's what you're doing. You're bringing back young people and starting fresh, right? With a new, I wouldn't say new, you're bringing back the old to introduce it back to the generation today, because you feel like we have lost all the principles of what we had before, causing us to have a lot of other problems in life. So explain to us how you kind of distilled all of this information into a framework that students, whether they are in the immersive program or whether they are in a supplemental program, can take advantage of it. Because I'm really interested to know how can we make maybe 1.8 billion Dr. Desais?
yeah, that's a very good question. So actually, we have created a framework for that. It's actually, again, based on the Vedas. There's a story in the Vedas where a student, actually a son of a sage, goes to the father and actually asks this question, which I just mentioned, Brahma Jignasa. He says, what is the ultimate reality and of this universe? So the father doesn't answer the question, which is the kind of teaching that Vedic system adopts, and which we are also trying to adopt in our school and education model. He doesn't answer the question. He gives a pointer. He says, you have to think for yourself. I'm not an answer box. Okay, I'm not Google. That's just going to give you answers. Artificial intelligence can do that. You type in a question, it'll give you an answer. I'm here to awaken you to your own questioning ability. And the answer is within you. Let me give you a pointer. That from which everything comes, that by which everything is sustained, and into that principle, everything dissolves. That from which everything comes, that by which everything is sustained, and into that, into which everything dissolves, that is the ultimate reality. He said, go reflect on this and come up with the answer, because the answer is within you. He goes and reflects and he says, food. In his contemplation and introspection, he says, food. We're all born from food. We are sustained by food. And when we die, the elements merge back into the elements and it gives rise to more food. So he says, food is the ultimate reality. He goes to the father and says, food. The father says, that's again another important point. He doesn't say right or wrong. He just says, incomplete. Go deeper. The answer is within. Go deeper. The answer is not outside. Don't look at some textbook. Don't go to another teacher. Don't Google it. Don't ask anyone. Nothing. Okay, you have to look for the answer within yourself. And your answer is not incorrect. It's just incomplete. So he goes deeper and says breath or vital force. We're all born because of the breath. We live because of the breath or the vital force. And when we merge back into the elements, the vital air merges, the air, the breath merges back into the air. So he says prana. First he says anna, incomplete. Then he says prana, vital force. The father says again incomplete, but you're going in the right direction. He goes back, contemplates further. He comes up with another answer. He says the mind. Manushya, Manav, Mana, mind. We're all born from the mind. We live by the mind, and when the body decays, the mind merges back into the universal mind. So he says the mind is the ultimate reality. He says, okay, getting better, getting closer, but not quite. Go deeper. He goes deeper within himself, and he says the intellect, buddhi, vijnana, natural intelligence. So he says we are all born from the intellect. We live by the intellect. We make choices by the intellect. We merge back into the universal intellect. And the father says, very close, but go deeper still. And when he goes deeper this time, he comes up with an interesting answer from within. Interesting truth emerges. He says, bliss, Ananda. We are all products of Ananda. It is only when a couple merges into union because of love, the happiness that they experience is what creates us. We live seeking happiness all the time. Not a single individual, not a single living creature on this planet seeks unhappiness. They all seek happiness in different forms. We are seeking happiness, so we live by happiness. And when we die, all our problems resolve, and there's only happiness at the end. So he says, Ananda, bliss. We're made of bliss. And the father and now the teacher says, very close, you're at the edge. Now, if you say anything, you're actually reducing the answer to words. So just abide in the answer now. And he goes deeper than even Ananda, and he discovers the truth of himself, his true nature, and the truth of this entire universe. Let me show you the model based on this story. This is the way our Vedic scriptures envision each human being, that we are not made of one body. When we're born, we're not born with just one body. We have 5 sheets. These are known as koshas, panchakosha. Panchakosha. So Annamaya kosha, the food sheath or the physical sheath. Pranamaya kosha, the vital sheath. Manomaya kosha, the mental or emotional sheath. Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellectual sheath. And Anandamaya kosha, the bliss sheath or the spiritual sheath. The true nature of our being is at the core of these 5 sheets because they cover. You might have heard kosha also in terms of treasure house. So it's almost like we are cloaked by these 5 sheets, but each of one of these is like a treasure house that needs to be developed for the human potential to unfold. Look at this seed. The seed, unless it sprouts and becomes a plant, it's of no value. Imagine a seed just staying as a seed and not ever sprouting. You would say it's as good as it not being, not existing, because the seed has value only when it sprouts and becomes a plant, gives flowers, or becomes a tree and gives fruits and shade, and so much to humanity. In the same way, each human being is like a seed. So starting from his birth or her birth, that seed needs to blossom, sprout. That human potential needs to self-unfold. And unless and until that happens, it's human potential wasted. It's a complete waste of what we can do, what we can be, what we truly are in reality. And the solutions or the frameworks that modern society is offering us today are actually making the situations worse, are actually making our plight worse. Social media, vacation packages, happy hour, okay, all of these are just simply distractions. We think we'll get a quick fix to our problems, but we never get it because they're not permanent solutions. Permanent solution is to go back to our heritage, and our heritage teaches us that each one of these sheets that I just showed you needs to be developed. So the physical sheet, it needs to be developed through traditional outdoor games that were designed for this, to the science of Ayurveda, which talks about not just curing a disease, but actually preventing disease. It talks about maintaining health in a natural way. It talks about not making medicines from chemicals, but using plants as medicine. It says everything in nature is a medicine. This is the foundation of Ayurveda. Ayu, life, Veda, knowledge. It is the fifth Veda, the Pancham Veda. Because to understand life, you must be in tune with nature. Ayurveda is about being in tune with nature and using nature for our well-being, listening to the biological clock within, following the seasons of this universe, being in tune with nature, being in harmony with nature, and thereby promoting our health and longevity.
So, Dr. Desai, how do you bring these concepts? How are you doing it in an everyday school setting? Um, I mean, is your school is for elementary and middle and high school, or is it elementary and middle school? What's the age of the kids?
So correct. Currently, we have elementary and we have started middle school. So right now we have actually till standard 5, and we're going to get standard 6 to 8 soon. That's as far as we are right now in terms of
So
permission.
actually, it's best for them to start in a kindergarten with you and keep
Yes.
it, because for the full
Correct.
immersive experience. Otherwise, coming in and going out, they lose it, right?
Yes.
So these Kosha, the 5 sheets you mentioned, you have distilled it down into a framework for students to learn.
Yes.
Maybe you can share that with us.
Yes, yes, that's precisely what I'm doing. So we have, like I said, outdoor traditional games. We have Ayurveda at the physical level, so for physical development. Then for the vital development, we have yoga. Okay, now today everyone around the world knows about yoga, but they know about yoga in a very kind of superficial way, as just a substitute for exercise or gymnastics. That's not what it is. Yoga is not just for the body, it's for the vital sheath to strengthen your prana, your vital force, and ultimately to know your true nature. So many people of non-Indian origin practice yoga today, but it's a big question how many Indians practice yoga on a daily basis. And that is our gift to the world. And it is incumbent upon us to look back at our roots and practice what is unique about us, what our gift is to humanity. Yoga, yogasanas, hatha yoga. And there's scriptures after scriptures on yoga. Then there's meditation for vital development, for concentration. How do you develop concentration? Today, children, teenagers hardly have an attention span of 2 minutes because of reels, instant messaging, fast food. Everything is fast, 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 as if we're just in a race. And when you're in a rat race, the rat that's going to win the race is going to remain a rat. It's not going to become a saint just because it has won a race, or it's not going to become a human because it has won the race. So we don't need to get involved in this race. We don't necessarily need to run in this race. We can pause. We can breathe. That is meditation. Learn to cultivate concentration, increase your attention span, increase your stability, your stillness, become more centered, become more sensitive, become more mindful, become more aware and awake to what is happening around you. Then there's emotional development. We have arts for that: Indian classical music, Indian classical dance. We also have, of course, craftsmanship, drama. There's whole literature, subject of Sahitya, Natya Shastra, Navarasas, the 9 different emotional flavors that a human being can experience. We don't even know how to get angry. We have all these bhavas, these emotions within us, and we don't know how to handle them. So what do we do with these emotions? We are emotional beings. How do we channel them? How do we transmute them? How do we sublimate them to their highest degree? That is the function of emotional well-being, emotional development. Then there is also nature play for emotional development, because the more you are in touch with nature, you put your hand in the soil, you plant a little plant, you nurture the plant, you sit with a tree, you sit under a tree, you go out in nature, you farm, you garden, compost, learn about biodegradable substances, learn about composting, learn about the whole process of recycling. Look, just go to a landfill and look at a landfill and look at the damage we're doing to the environment and to ourselves. It's like almost like a mass suicide. Humanity's mass suicide. Plastic, landfill, waste, wastage, whether it's a food or items, and consumption, consumerism, driven by capitalism or whatever ism. But it's all about consuming, 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 hoarding, hoarding, not sharing. And for emotional development, we teach them about sharing, being in tune with nature, learning to let go, learning to listen to nature, learning to listen to the sound of water in a lake or in a stream, learning to listen to the birds chirping, the art of observation, the art of listening. Today, we are unable to listen to each other. Forget nature. We don't even have the patience to listen to each other. When somebody is speaking, we interrupt. We're busy thinking of how to reply. We're busy thinking of how to question. We're busy thinking of how to challenge that person, how to debate with that person, how to argue with that person, rather than compassionate listening. For intellectual development, we have storytelling. We have so many stories in our tradition. Panchatantra, Hitopadesh, Vikram Vetal, Sinhasan Battisi. Of course, we have Puranas, 18 Mahapuranas, and so many minor Puranas. We have the epics, Itihasa, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and of course, the stories from the Upanishads. A couple of them I already shared with you in a nutshell version. Stories after stories giving one message. Explore yourself, discover yourself, know your true potential, unfold your true potential, realize who you are in reality. And then we have Sanskrit, the language Sanskrit, which I began with. Sanskrit is the root of our tradition. Sanskrit is not just a language, but Sanskriti, the culture. So we cannot remove or decouple Sanskrit from Sanskriti and from Prakriti, because Sanskrit is not a human created language. It's not a mental language. It's not an arbitrary conventional language. It's the language of the gods. It's Deva Bhasha. It's Deva Vani. And Deva means light. Deva means elements. So when you tune into nature, when you sit with a quiet mind and listen to nature, you hear Sanskrit. Samskrita, the perfected language. You hear the sound of nature. You hear the sound of silence. And you hear Sanskrit, the perfected language. There can be no change in this language. It's a perfect language. Today, scientists say it enhances brain functions, cognitive functions. It's called the Sanskrit effect in scientific terminology. It's used, it's known to enhance speech development. It's like a speech therapy in a way. It's a scientific language. It enhances the way you structure your thoughts and the way you organize. It helps you become more organized. Because you have to enunciate, and the pronunciations are so intricate, it gives you kind of exercise of your jaw and your tongue. It uses your entire capacity of your entire mouth apparatus. It's healing. There's just the sound of Sanskrit is healing. These letters are embedded in our language, in our body, throughout the body, in the chakras, in the energy centers within the body. Just listening to Vedic mantras heals diseases that medicine cannot.
So how
This is the
can we
power
experience
of
it? Sorry, Dr. Desai, how can parents in the US with children gain some of this advantage from your framework. I believe you are working with HPN to conduct a camp in the US this summer. So to the parents, I'm going to say, please look out for announcements of a camp, because I could listen to Dr. Desai, I would say, for many, many days, and I would probably gain only a little bit of what he has been exploring for himself. But if HPN is announcing a camp, I'd encourage all the parents and kids, your children, to come and experience and understand and engage in a conversation with Dr. Desai. I think that is how your kids can learn a little bit more. I know, Dr. Desai, we are kind of at the hour, so there are some questions. Can I bring the questions to you? So if we go
Sure.
into the Q&A, there is a parent who said, how do we bring, a high schooler? How do we engage a high schooler growing up in the US with Hindu mentors and others before they sail to the unknown? And I have to say, the unknown is very, very unpleasant place for Hindu kids today. So do you have any advice for, let's say, a high schooler who did not go through the framework you laid out, the Kosha framework, but growing up here, and the parent wants them to have some connections to their roots? What would you advise?
Yeah, so it's never too late to start. Okay, this is about our potential, and it is about discovering who we truly are. That doesn't go away just because the lion happens to live with a herd of sheep. There's a story that comes in the Vedic tradition that one day a lioness came to hunt a flock or herd of sheep, and the caretaker shoots the lioness, and the lioness happened to be pregnant, and it delivers the baby and gets killed in the process. But the baby survives, the lion cub, but it lives with sheep. It grows up in that company of sheep. Now, sheep, if you know a little bit about environmental science, they work in herd instinct. They are prey. Okay, they're not predators. So they behave in a very fearful way, and they're always kind of insecure and afraid, and they move around in groups. That's how a lion cub begins to behave. It begins to think, I'm sheep, and it begins to behave like one. But let me tell you something. It never became a sheep. It stayed as a lion. What it takes now is, if a lion comes from the jungle, first of all the sheep are going to run away. And this lion cub, because it thinks it's a sheep as well, it's also going to run away. So anytime we hear something like this coming, we get afraid, am I sure I want to dip into this? This is like so exotic, or it's only for the yogis or for people living somewhere far remote. What about practicalities of life? So we could quickly just try to run away from it. First, I would say, don't run away. If a lion has come, it has come now to tell that lion cub that, look, you're a lion. You're behaving like a sheep, and it looks funny. It looks ridiculous. It is ludicrous to think that a lion is beginning to believe that it is a sheep. So it takes a lion to a pond, finally when it catches hold of it, and says, look, you look like me. And the lion cub says, yeah, I do look like you. Says, well, you are me. You are no different from me. And look, you can roar like a lion. Why are you behaving in such a timid way? So the point I'm trying to make here is that it's never too late, because who you are has not changed. So that's the kind of good news of the Vedic tradition, that you are truly that light and that bliss that has not gone away. So don't worry. It's never too late. You can wake up here and now. How? Well, you have to actually change your company. Just like the lion had to go away from that sheep, that flock, that herd for a while, and spend time in the company of a lion. In the same way, in Vedic education, the most important element is the environment. And like Sudhaji, you already announced, we are going to hold camps for the first time in the US with this education model. I invite all of you who are listening to this. We will share the information with you about the camp, so look out for that in the future. But this is going to be an offering to our tradition. This is what our tradition has to offer, and we must take advantage of this. We must immerse ourselves in this environment, and the camps are only going to be for 2 days. Come for 2 days, try it out, and see how you feel. Within 2 days, we promise you that something will happen within you. And we see that happening with these children that we work with on a daily basis. Just, there have been cases of children who have come to us as addicts of uh, gadgets, uh, children who have come with grief, with some emotional issues. And all of these issues we've been able to solve, not with any medicine, but simply by the sciences that I just introduced: Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, Indian classical arts, storytelling, Sanskrit. Right technique in the right environment works wonders. So we are going to hold camps for teenagers as well. There's no age barrier in terms of getting awakened to this knowledge. So you don't have to add one more worry to your existing worries already. This shouldn't create more anxiety in you that, oops, I kind of missed out on so much. Well, you didn't, because there's nothing to miss out on. You are truly light and bliss. So there's nothing to miss out on. What you're missing out on is the recognition of that knowledge, which happens when you spend time in that environment. It cannot happen on a virtual level. You can get an idea of it, you can get knowledge and a little bit of glimpse, but to actually make it your own, right now, the knowledge and the experience that you get is based on my words. So it's kind of borrowed knowledge. In the Vedic tradition, it has to be your personal, direct, first-hand experience. And for that, you must come in the environment, spend time in that environment, in a natural, cultural, inspirational, and spiritual environment for some time. And that awakening is bound to happen. And then you don't need to believe anyone. You know it for yourself.
Very good answers. And I look forward to the summer camps because I think that is very much needed for our parents and children here. One other question I had is today, after today's talk with you, how can a parent and a child go back home and even in the simplest form, sort of begin to engage in, in our original self, you know, is that maybe a 3-minute meditation? You just sit with your child, light a lamp. What are some simple things a parent and child can do? Let's say after we shut off the Zoom call, how do we start? Maybe you have some words of wisdom for us.
Yeah, so that obviously, to keep the tradition authentic, this platform won't give us the space and the time to go deep into that. That's what we do. We also train parents. In fact, that's the biggest hurdle is training parents and making them realize the importance of this. Parents are the first teachers, the mother is the first guru, and that is what our tradition believes. So education starts with the parents, not with the school teachers. So you're absolutely right. The parents need to be practicing these Vedic practices first in order for the children to do it. If you look at our scriptures, we have stories of mothers who were great teachers, who like Shivaji's mother, or like Madalsa, who gave birth to a being who was just born liberated, who she used to sing lullabies that said, "Why are you crying? Oh baby, why are you crying? You know, you're not this body made of the 5 elements." So imagine a mother singing a lullaby like that. Shuddhosi veta, natesi nama. You are pure. Hey tat, hey, oh my child, you are pure. You're blemishless. Natesti nama, you have no name. You're not made of these 5 elements. So why are you crying? So from a very tender young age, a child was nurtured to understand that there's nothing to cry about. And I don't need anything to stop my crying. Today, if a child cries, the parent will say, here's an iPhone. Just watch a video on this. Here's a candy. Just chew on it. And that's how we stop children from crying. We give them toys, we give them candies, we give them gadgets. And that crying is not for that. The crying is for that true knowledge. The baby knows. It said in the Garbha Upanishad that the fetus has a miserable time in the womb. It's surrounded by fluid and excreta and darkness, and it's a horrible claustrophobic environment. It cries for help. And the Lord helps the fetus by giving the natural mantra of the breath. And that baby starts to breathe, and that calms it down. The moment it enters this world, the delivery happens, the baby enters this world, it starts crying. In the womb, it promises the Lord that because you have given me this mantra that has protected me. Mantra means mananatayate iti mantra. That which protects is the mantra. You protected me. I promise you I will serve you my whole life. I will contemplate your glory my whole life. As soon as it is born, Maya takes over, the ignorance of this world takes over, and that so that I am that Supreme Lord gives way to Koham. Who am I? And it starts crying because it doesn't know the answer. So the crying, the baby crying, the teenager crying, the adult crying, the old man crying is because of lack of knowledge of the self, not because of lack of anything or any relationship. It is because the human being doesn't know who I truly am. It lost that knowledge when it was born in this world. So a simple technique that I would tell you right now, given the limitations of space and time, is learn to sit with your children and learn to just breathe without any gadgets, without any noise, without TV, without the computer, without the laptop, without the phone, without a book even, without anything. Just sit and breathe. You're already breathing, but breathe consciously. Take 10 minutes to breathe. Let's do it now, and I'll show you what it means. Just gently close your eyes. Sit up straight. Make sure your spinal cord is erect. Your ears aligned to the shoulders. Shoulder blades pulled in. And close your eyes gently, not forcefully. Just drop them shut like a lotus at sunset, closing its petals. Put your hands on your knees, relax your shoulders. Soften your gaze and turn it inward. Relax the skin on your forehead. Relax your jawbone. Gently close your lips. Leave some space in between your upper and lower teeth. Take a deep breath in through the nostrils. Take the breath up into the cranium of your head. Fill the cranium with breath. Allow the breath to descend down into the throat and your chest. Fill both your lungs with breath. Expand your chest. Let the breath sink down into your heart. And as it sinks into the heart, feel your belly, your abdomen expanding with breath. Your diaphragm pushing the stomach. Hold the breath for a moment, as long as it feels natural to do so, and allow it to rise when it's ready to rise from the navel up, from the heart up, emptying your chest, your lungs, your throat. Let the breath ascend up into the top of your head and exhale out through the top of your head in its subtle form. And through the ghost form, the breath will be exhaled out through the nostrils. Follow the breath all the way up until it stops outside 12 fingers distance from the tip of your nose. Feel that pause. Take a deep breath again. Feel the breath, the air touching your nostrils. Feel the temperature of the air touching your nostrils. Feel the sensation of the air coming in through your nostrils. Expand as you breathe in. Hold the breath, feel the pause. Focus on that pause. Exhale out, feel the sensation of the exhalation. Feel the temperature of the breath. Breathe in slowly, deeply. Breathe out slowly, fully. Focus on the pause in between the out breath and the in breath, and in between the in breath and the out breath. For just a moment, let go of your past. Forget your past. Forget you have a past. And for a moment, stop worrying about the future that has not yet come. Let go of the dead past and the unborn future. Abide in the living, breathing present moment. Don't give any importance to any thought that arises. Just give importance to the breath that comes in and goes out. It keeps you alive, conscious. Feel each breath with gratitude. Feel each breath with a sense of wonder. Listen to your breath. Forget your name, your body, your gender, your age, your personality, your history. Forget yourself for just 1 minute. Forget time and space. Forget where you are, what you are. Just for a moment, enter into that timeless, eternal, present moment beyond space, time, and causation. Abide in that silence. Abide in that light. Abide in that peace without any disturbance. I am peace. Gently open your eyes.
Dr. Desai, thank you. That was the best practical aspect of the magnificent talk you gave us today. There was a lot in that talk. I think we have to start exploring for ourselves, like you said. And hopefully this summer, parents and students will come and engage with you and get on their journey of exploration, right?
I
And
look
begin to
forward
learn
to
for
it.
ourselves. Yeah.
Look
Thank
forward to
you.
it.
And thank you. And we look forward to continuing to work with you and all the parents who joined. Thank you for joining and experiencing, I would say, a transformative kind of a conversation that all of us should be engaged in. Thank you and have a good day. Namaste.